What if the man you loved faked his death and then framed you for murder? For Clara Matthews, that isn't a story, it's her life. In 2013, a woman in Texas was convicted of murder, but there was no weapon, no witnesses, and no body. Still, she was sentenced to life in prison. Her name was Clara Matthews. She was a 34-year-old mother of two, quiet, polite, and ordinary. But when her estranged husband, Daniel, suddenly vanished, police turned their attention to her. Daniel's car was abandoned at a rest stop. His phone was dead, his bank account untouched. There was no blood, no signs of a struggle, no digital trail. Yet investigators were certain Clara had killed him. The only evidence? Circumstance. The couple was in the middle of a bitter divorce. To police, that was motive enough. Detectives pointed to Clara's suspicious statements, but recordings revealed she only said, "I don't know where he is. I wish I did." Still, prosecutors twisted her words as cold and calculated. Two witnesses came forward. Both claimed they heard Clara say she would make Daniel disappear. But under cross-examination, their stories fell apart. One admitted he was offered leniency in another case if he testified. The other later recanted. Despite this, the jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Clara was found guilty, life in prison. Legal experts call it a conviction built on suspicion, not fact. 1 year later, everything changed. A man matching Daniel's description was spotted in New Mexico. Same height, same build, same scar on his arm. A store clerk swore it was him. A grainy camera image seemed to confirm it. Police dismissed the sighting as coincidence. But Clara's family hired a private investigator. He traced financial records tied to a fake name. The deposits matched Daniel's old paycheck amounts, down to the cent someone was using Daniel's social security number. The trail led to Arizona motels. Each booking lasted only a few nights. Paid in cash. Always late check-ins. Always leaving before dawn. It was Daniel's brother, Michael. Michael had been dead for 10 years. At least, that's what everyone believed. He was supposed to have drowned in a boating accident. His body was never recovered. The Matthews family held a funeral. The obituary was printed in the paper. Yet here he was, standing in the doorway, alive. The investigator backed away slowly. Michael looked thinner, older, but unmistakable. He asked, "What are you doing in my house?" The PI stammered, "I'm looking for Daniel." Michael's expression changed. His jaw tightened. He said, "You need to leave now." But then, something even stranger. On the table behind Michael, the PI saw another photo, a recent one. It showed Daniel and Michael together, both alive, both smiling, both hiding. The PI left shaken. He knew if he stayed, he wouldn't make it out alive. Back at his office, he pieced everything together. Daniel hadn't just staged his own disappearance. He had help from a brother the world thought was dead. But why? Digging deeper, the PI found old court records. Daniel was being investigated for fraud at the time he vanished. Millions of dollars unaccounted for at his company. Prosecutors were circling. Prison was inevitable, unless he disappeared. Michael, presumed dead, had already built a new identity. He knew how to vanish. Daniel followed his lead. In 2019, a man in Nevada reported a strange encounter. He swore he gave a ride to two men who matched Daniel and Michael's descriptions. They paid him in cash. They never gave their names. When he dropped them off, one turned and said, "Don't believe what they tell you about us." The trail went cold again. But then, in 2021, everything exploded. A human skull was found in the Arizona desert. Investigators said it matched Daniel Matthews. News outlets declared Clara guilty once again. The husband really was dead all along, they said, but the PI wasn't convinced. Forensic reports were vague, dental records incomplete, DNA degraded, and the timing felt too perfect. Every time the truth got close, new evidence appeared to shut it down. The DNA test was incomplete. The bone was too degraded. Only fragments could be compared. And strangely, the results were rushed, pushed through in weeks, when such testing normally takes months. Even stranger, The skull had no jaw, which meant no dental match could be made. It was identified purely by assumption. If Daniel really was dead, why did photos show him alive years after his disappearance? And where was Michael? Two men, always together, always passing through, never staying long. But here's the most chilling part. The attendant remembered one thing clearly. He said Daniel looked directly at the security camera that night, as if he wanted to be seen, like he was sending a message. The PI left shaken. Daniel wasn't hiding anymore. He was playing a game. But who was the target? The police? The prosecutors? Or Clara herself? Back at the prison, Clara was denied parole again. The board cited new evidence of Daniel's death as proof she was a danger to society. The skull sealed her fate. Even though Daniel was out there, alive, the PI's last lead came from the gas station attendant. He remembered Daniel asking about cabins for rent up north, near the Utah wilderness. The investigator followed the trail, and late one night, deep in the mountains, he found tire tracks leading to another cabin. Inside the window, a light flickered. Two shadows moved across the room. He crept closer, holding his phone camera. He saw Daniel, older, bearded, but unmistakably him, sitting at a table. And across from him, Michael, the private investigator, ran. Branches whipped his face as he tore through the dark forest. Behind him, footsteps pounding. Getting closer, he didn't dare look back. He knew it was Daniel, the man everyone believed was dead, the man whose wife sat in prison for his murder. The PI stumbled, nearly falling. He clutched his phone, still recording. Proof that Daniel and Michael were alive. Proof that could set Clara free. But he had to survive the night. A flashlight beam cut through the trees. Voices shouted. Two of them, Daniel and Michael. Find him, one yelled. He has the video, the other snapped. The PI crawled into a ditch, pressing himself against the earth. The light swept past. Silence. Then footsteps faded. He waited, counted his breaths. Then he crawled out and sprinted toward his car parked on the dirt road. His hands shook as he jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared. He sped away. For the first time, he thought he was safe. But 10 miles down the road, headlights appeared in his rear-view mirror. Bright, blinding. The truck closed and fast. He swerved. The truck rammed his bumper. Metal screeched. The PI gripped the wheel, fighting to stay on the road. Another hit. Harder. The car spun, flipped, and crashed into a ditch. Glass shattered. Darkness. When he woke, his phone was gone. The video gone. Daniel and Michael stood over him, calm, smiling. You should have stayed out of this, Daniel said. They dragged him from the wreck, left him in the cold dirt, and then, without another word, they disappeared into the night. But the PI knew the truth. He had seen Daniel and Michael alive. He had heard their voices, felt their rage, and he realized something chilling. This wasn't just a disappearance. It wasn't just fraud. It was a cover-up, because someone had helped Daniel and Michael vanish. Someone powerful enough to bury reports, manipulate evidence, and plant a skull in the desert. And as long as that someone remained in the shadows, Clara would stay in prison for a crime that never happened. The private investigator lay in a hospital bed, his ribs broken, his face bruised, his phone, the one piece of evidence that could have freed Clara, stolen. Nurses came and went, asking if he remembered anything about the crash. He told them nothing, because he knew what had really happened. Daniel and Michael Matthews were alive, and someone, somewhere, was making sure that truth never reached daylight. When he was discharged, the PI returned to his office. The place had been ransacked, files overturned, desk drawers yanked out, and his computer hard drive ripped clean. Whoever had been there wanted every trace of his investigation gone. But they missed something. Inside a cracked picture frame on the floor, he found an old business card, one he had tucked away months ago. It belonged to a man named James O'Leary, a corporate attorney, who once represented Daniel's company during the fraud investigation. On the back, scribbled in pen, was a note Daniel had written years earlier in an email. He'll make this go away. Just trust him. The PI's pulse quickened. Was James O'Leary the powerful someone? O'Leary wasn't just a lawyer. He was a fixer, the kind of man wealthy clients called when they needed problems buried. He had political connections, ties to prosecutors, even influence over local police departments. The PI dug into court records, financial filings, and old news articles. A pattern emerged. Whenever one of O'Leary's clients faced prison time for fraud or embezzlement, evidence mysteriously disappeared. Witnesses retracted statements. Cases collapsed. It was always O'Leary. And Daniel had worked for a company that lost millions. Money investigators claimed vanished. The PI now believed it hadn't vanished at all. It had been siphoned, funneled, and laundered with O'Leary's help. The deeper he dug, the clearer the picture became. Daniel hadn't just staged his disappearance to avoid prison. He had walked away with a fortune. The PI traced shell companies registered under fake names. But one name appeared again and again, Michael Matthews, the brother who had supposedly drowned, the brother who came back from the dead. The PI realized the brothers had been running a scheme for over a decade, moving stolen money through offshore accounts, fake real estate deals, and cash-heavy businesses. And O'Leary? He was the architect. Meanwhile, Clara Matthews sat in a prison cell. Her parole denied once again. Every headline screamed the same thing. Husband skull found, wife still guilty. She stared at the wall, knowing the world believed she was a murderer. Her children, now teenagers, visited less and less. Who could blame them? They had grown up thinking their mother killed their father. But late at night, Clara whispered the same words to herself. He's not dead. He's out there. The PI knew she was right. But without evidence, the system wouldn't listen. Determined, the PI arranged a meeting with one of O'Leary's former associates, a whistleblower who once worked in his law office. They met in a parking garage, shadows stretching across the concrete. The man's hands trembled as he spoke. Do you know what you're getting into? O'Leary doesn't just fix cases. He owns people, judges, cops, even feds. That skull in the desert? You think that was real? That was planted. He's been cleaning up Daniel's mess for years. The PI leaned closer. Why? Why go to all this trouble? The man swallowed hard. Because Daniel didn't just steal company money. He stole O'Leary's money. Millions. And instead of killing him, O'Leary saw opportunity. Daniel disappears. The wife takes the fall. And together they move the money wherever they want. Clara rots in prison, while the Matthews brothers keep paying his cut. The PI felt sick. This wasn't just a family scheme. It was a conspiracy built on lies, corruption, and blood money. That night, the PI noticed a black SUV parked across from his office. The same SUV followed him to a diner, then to his apartment. Whoever it was, they wanted him to know he was being watched. He stayed awake until dawn, staring at the shadows moving outside his blinds. He realized he was now part of the game. If O'Leary could plant a skull, silence witnesses, and protect fugitives for nearly a decade, what would he do to one stubborn investigator? Weeks later, the PI received an anonymous package. Inside was a flash drive. No note, no return address. He hesitated, then plugged it into a burner laptop. What he saw made his blood run cold. Dozens of surveillance photos. Daniel and Michael entering motels, gas stations, diners. Always together, always alive. The latest timestamp was from just 3 months earlier, and in several of the photos, James O'Leary was with them. The PI finally had what he needed. Not just proof that Daniel lived, but proof of who was protecting him. But evidence wasn't enough. He had to decide how to use it. If he went to the police, O'Leary's influence could bury the flash drive just like everything else. If he went public, the brothers would come for him again. And this time, he knew they wouldn't leave him alive. He thought of Clara, still locked away, losing more of her life each day. He thought of her children, growing up without a mother. The PI opened his laptop and began to type. An email, one that included every file, every photo, every detail. He didn't send it to the police. He didn't send it to a lawyer. He sent it to every major news outlet in the country. Within 48 hours, the story broke nationwide. Headlines blared. The husband who faked his death, and the lawyer who helped him. Images of Daniel and Michael filled TV screens. News anchors questioned the justice system that had condemned Clara with no body, no weapon, and no proof. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse demanding her release. O'Leary issued a statement denying involvement, but the photos told another story. The FBI announced a task force, and for the first time, Clara's case was under official review. But Daniel and Michael weren't done. Days later, a video surfaced online. Grainy, shot in a cabin. Daniel's voice, calm and steady. You think you know the truth? You know nothing. Clara wasn't innocent. She was part of it. And if you keep digging, people will die. Michael appeared beside him, staring coldly into the camera. Leave us alone. The screen went black. The PI watched in horror. This wasn't over. The brothers were still out there, still running. And now, they were rewriting the narrative again, trying to drag Clara down with them. But the tide had shifted. For the first time in nearly a decade, people believed Clara. For the first time, the Matthews brothers were the ones on the run. And yet, one chilling thought remained. If O'Leary had protected them for so long, how many more Daniels and Michaels were out there? How many lives have been buried? How many innocent lives destroyed, just to keep the powerful untouchable? The PI closed his blinds, locked his door, and sat in silence. Somewhere in the night, Daniel and Michael were watching. Somewhere, O'Leary was plotting his next move. And Clara, still behind bars, was running out of time. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The next is going to be something you couldn't imagine. Subscribe and follow for more.